That was always a question mark, I think, with ingestible beauty in the States. I think, and supplements in general was, do they work? Because you don't see it immediately, whereas topicals, you see something. And so having the science backed and the clinicals now to back it up, I think, bring a level of believability to the category that wasn't there before, or wasn't always so evident.
Hi everyone, my name is Uroš, I'm Chief Innovation Officer at TOSLA Nutricosmetics, and today I'll be hosting this special episode of the TOSLA Nutricosmetics show. We have a very special guest today, Mr. Lorne Lucree. Welcome, Lorne.
Thanks for having me.
Lorne is a seasoned beauty industry executive and the founder of the Quiet Coyote Consulting, a firm specializing in product development, formulation, packaging, sustainability, and brand strategy. With 20 years of experience, he has held key roles at major companies such as L'Oreal, Estée Lauder, Luxury Brand Partners, Voyant Beauty, and Unilever Prestige, where he served as a strategic innovation advisor and senior vice president at Tatcha. Again, thank you, Lorne, for being here. It's a real pleasure to have you. I wanted to give a bit of a context to our viewers and listeners. Lorne was kind enough to be here with us for the past 3 days, where we were together with the R&D team of TOSLA shaping the innovation roadmap. We were trying to look how the years and months ahead would look like for TOSLA in terms of innovation. It has been real fun for me, and I thought that it would be a cool way to conclude these 3 days by doing this podcast.
Cool.
So let me start with these questions, Lorne. Why do you think that beauty is at a critical inflection point right now?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me again. It's been so fun being here, and I think what you guys are doing at TOSLA is so interesting. And again, this inflection point of ingestible beauty, of overall beauty, where we're going, and beauty and wellness, and how this is all kind of culminating together, I think is so fascinating. I think there's a few macro trends happening that are driving what the consumer is kind of demanding now from I think overall wellness and how beauty and personal care and ingestibles all coming together to serve that. So one is science-backed solutions, and I remember 10 years ago you could launch a brand without any clinicals and be fine, with some fairy dust marketing and some soft claims, and get by, and that would be okay. And now, you have to have, at the very least, some consumer studies, and it would be great to have some clinical studies, and now will be most likely table stakes moving forward. And so consumers are looking for that, for reassurance and validity for any brand. So I think that's reassuring, and I think that was always a question mark, I think, with ingestible beauty in the States. I think, and supplements in general was, do they work? Because you don't see it immediately, whereas topicals, you see something. And so having the science backed and the clinicals now to back it up, I think, bring a level of believability to the category that wasn't there before, or wasn't always so evident. So I think that's one big thing that's kind of changed the game for ingestibles and topicals and all those things, and kind of able to change the narrative there. The second is this idea of, we've talked about longevity a ton, but this idea of, preventative health versus sick health, and taking control of your kind of destiny with how you're aging and how you feel and your mood and all these things. And so knowing that you can kind of control that, and you don't have to wait until you feel sick or that you see wrinkles to do something about it, and you can kind of intervene. Consumers feeling empowered to do that, I think, is really fascinating, and really an optimistic viewpoint, and ingestibles are a tool to do that,
Yeah.
and proven by the clinicals that you guys are doing and showcasing, which I think is again so fascinating and so empowering. And then, the last is like, this idea of kind of this holistic approach. So like, the linking of emotional to what's, the gut, to gut, to mind, to skin, and all these things, that something that used to be so like so foreign, like like neurocosmetics, and what, like something I can put on my face can affect how I feel, and something I smell can affect my mood. Like all these things that used to be kind of a gimmick now are actually being proven out and true. And I think people are starting to believe actually those things of like, I could eat a bacteria that will affect my gut, that then will affect my skin, which will affect my, so like it's like piecing together all these things and proven out by clinicals and showing by, and then, being proven out, and allowing them to kind of, again, take control of their health and then, and then live a better life, I think it's all coming together in this really magical way, which I think is great. Yeah.
I love the minimalism also of it, because maybe as a consumer, but also professionally, like I love the idea that you can now have one product that tackles multi benefits, right? Which what collagen, I would say, is doing. Like you ingest collagen, it doesn't affect only your wrinkles, but it also goes into your let's say joints or gut. So it has an effect on all of these things, which also go into the area of longevity, not just beauty. And I think that beauty and these ingestibles, food supplements, the line between them is really blurring.
Totally. Totally. And those we talked at length, but I think it's so fascinating because, like, as a marketer, you're always taught to like be really clear about the benefits, and like, the consumers really want to understand exactly, and like, so intuitively you think about these stacks or whatever of like, skin, guts, all these things, and you're like, well, is it going to get confusing? But I think the consumers actually are demanding that these things do multiple things. But we talked about how collagen is one of those like powerhouse ingredients that like, I think consumers really get that it can do all these multiple things, just like vitamin C or retinol or whatever. And I think and it's because of the science that you guys have done, the research and the clinic, all those things to prove out all those benefits, so they believe it, and then they get it, and they can piece all those things together, which I think is really powerful.
Yeah, coming back to the clinicals and all of that, I thought that it was really that we were really cool at TOSLA, because we have one of the backbones of our like innovation, the scientific validity, and of course clinical studies being at the pinnacle of that. But nowadays, as you said, it's really hard to even launch a brand without this clinical backing. So it became a must.
It became a must. Yes.
And it seems that the beauty industry is also quite saturated. Would you say that that's true, or is there still space for them to, penetrate the market?
I think there's, there's still brands that are not. I think that are still. So yes, I think there's still space to. And I think maybe it's more around potentially maybe the approaches used to clinically test, and how you're storytelling around it, and then how you're bringing in other things into the story to augment that. So we were talking about brands that are doing it well, and I was actually just seeing something about another. Some other brands around like bringing traceability in and other things, and so like you can bring other storylines into the equation to help to then augment some of the other messaging to help to bring the clinicals to life too, to add further validity and I think validation and things like that to kind of further build trust in consumers' minds with the clinicals, et cetera. So I think there's still space. I think it's just more how you tell your story.
Yeah. You need to be more creative, I would say, also with the storytelling and
Absolutely.
Also with the consumer studies, I would say.
Absolutely.
And all of that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And there you have like, because I think that's, there's been actually a lot of, a lot of like surveys and research on both on like actually from like the media side, but also from actually the people who do the survey or the clinicals themselves of like what consumers are looking for in clinicals and what they want to see actually to believe. And, there's interesting data of like, 100% results are not actually believable at the end of the like things like that are like, and it's like, wait, what? No, it's not. But it's like actually consumers actually would rather believe like a 72% claim that actually is more believable for them versus this, and so it's like, and even Sephora, I've been in meetings with the Sephora buyers where they're like, a brand putting 100% immediate hydration claim on a product, that's like silly. Like what consumer wouldn't believe that a moisturizer is going to give you hydration? You shouldn't be launching it if it's not giving you 100% hydration when you put it on. So like, why would you even test for that? So like things like that are like silly things, but like, yes, to your point, like why couldn't you push the needle in terms of like more creative storytelling with your clinicals that like maybe could get a bit more emotional or drive a bit more maybe nuanced benefits, or maybe like maybe uncover some of those like multi-benefit relations of like the joint, things like that, joint skin relations or things like that. I don't know, like that, maybe could create more, different stories in consumers' minds of how to think about the product differently. Yeah.
Great. What would you say that excites you the most about the trends?
Oh my gosh.
You personally?
Well, I think there's like, there continues to be a lot of like, inside out overlaps, I would say. I mean, that's probably better terms to say, but like, like GLP-1 is one we've talked about. So like,
I love that.
That is like, and how that affects both topical beauty, but also ingestible, supplements and just overall lifestyle. So like a lot of research about that of like, because, those that are taking GLP-1 inhibitors, they are feeling better about themselves. So that means that they're buying more beauty products. That means that they're also, that they're feeling more confident. So they're buying more supplements to feel more, to actually even further further amplify that. But then they also have new needs. So they have new nutritional needs. They have new gaps that they need more new supplements for. They have deficiencies because they're not eating as much, and they're which we talked about. Then, but they also have then skin health needs. Their skin is deflated. They're depleted. They're accelerating some of the signs of aging, etc. So it's like uncovering all these new gaps to address mood, all that. So I think it's fascinating because it's causing a new beauty is definitely not static for sure, the category, which is why I think we're probably in it, because it's exciting. So something like that I think keeps it interesting.
Yeah, I would agree. And GLP-1 is so fascinating to me because every now and then so you have like trends that are emerging and fading, and it all happens very quickly. For example, this year, like turmeric extract, kimchi, kefir is popular. Next year it will be something else. But there every now and then something really strong emerges, like GLP-1, that really disrupts the whole thing. I would say it's fascinating how even the McDonald's stock fell because of that. I don't know whether it was the market was afraid or people actually are going less and less because of the Ozempic and medicines like that. And we were talking a lot about possible innovation in that space, GLP-1, and I think like the first thought, what I also see like on the internet, how brands and even manufacturers are thinking in our industry is, okay, let's try to offer an alternative that is natural, but it's tackling the same issue. But I would argue, and I think we agree on this, that that's not the right way of thinking, because you would never be able to compete with Ozempic. It's that effective, and you could never achieve this with, I don't know, botanical extracts,
100%.
vitamins, and so on. But there is white space. There are gaps in things that you mentioned, like nutrient deficiencies, and depleted skin, things like that. Things emerged out of that. But yeah, like my advice to brands and manufacturers, don't try to compete with Ozempic directly and the GLP-1
I think that's so
suppressors.
smart. I mean, to come out with like another, like, because what was it, like berberine, you saw
Yes.
that like spike, and it's like that will be something that was, I think, a consumer purchases once and maybe gets through a quarter of a bottle and throws away because they don't see any of the results, that they would see from an Ozempic, to your point.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
versus something to your that like truly did provide an additive benefit that was thought through, I think, more intelligently, like you said. I think that's a really smart way to think. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What about this trend, using food to bring products to life? Can you talk about this?
Yeah, oh my gosh, we like I mean, because that's you talk about like ingestible beauty being at an inflection point, and like that this would be another thing that I would see driving that, or some like food as an inspiration for beauty, which is, I think, has always been here and there, but like more so now, I think, because you look at like the explosion of fragrance, and what's really driving fragrance, especially in the U.S., is like gourmand. Beyond, people in the U.S. love a vanilla, pistachio, caramel,
We
strawberry.
do the same
Oh,
here.
okay.
So.
Well, great. Perfect. Okay, good to know. Yeah. So it's like, that's all that sells, is like those, like, so food, like, so naturally those fragrances are brought to life by visuals that are just like so food inspired. So then it's like, so then that's getting, then bleeding into skincare, which is then like, utilizing food as inspiration for visuals, whether it's for the flavors for lip balm, which lip is like, again, another category. Lip balm is is kind of dying a bit, but lip oils and lip balms was a category that was on fire and growing so rapidly, and that's where really is being driven by finishes, which could be linked to beauty. So like Laneige just launched a lip balm that was with an applicator that looks like a donut, so they called it a donut glaze. So the glaze being like the finish inspired by food, with flavors inspired by donuts. So it's like all linking and kind of creating this kind of full experiential effect. And then then the flavors, of course, being kind of a direct link. So overall, I think and then of course ingredients being like such a direct very straightforward play of these ingredients from foods, leveraging into skin, body care, hair care as being good for you. So I think it's all those things. I think it's been particularly though strong in imagery and social as being something that we've seen as of late. So which has been really cool to see. I think it's something that's been interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, to me too. It's a new cool way how to explain the product, but also it kind of it's water on our wheel, like in terms of ingestible and so on, because to us the sensory properties of the product are like at the core. Sometimes I would argue that they are even more important than the efficacy itself. I don't think that people would drink anything if it didn't taste good, but after a while results also become important, because I think that if you take something for 2 months and you don't see the results, you wouldn't take something just for the sake of tasting well. So.
Absolutely. And I mean, you were talking about it. I think it's such a smart way to think about it, is like, what are the ways to like improve compliance, which is like, if you talk to any doctor in medical, they're always looking for ways to improve patient compliance of using medicine, because that's like, like daily, like, because if they can do that, then it will, it'll improve the patient outcome, right? So like, if you can design a product that will improve adoption and compliancy, then they're more likely to see results and to continue purchasing, but also to feel better and to live to live a better life and to have better joint health and to all those things that that collagen is going to do, which is, I think, is a really powerful thing. So, to design a product that is going to be, to taste better, to sit better, to digest better, for ease of use, for dosage, all those things, I think is really smart, because you're thinking about all the different facets of the sensorial thing versus just like concentrating it. And that should be enough for the consumer. It's like, that's not enough, actually. It's got to be all of it together,
Correct. Yeah, you have to have this multi-angle approach, and everything needs to align at the end of the 100%. Day when you launch a brand.
Yep.
Can we speak about formats a bit? Like at TOSLA, we do liquids. Is this a good time to be manufacturing liquids, or we just should switch to capsules or gummies? Or?
It's so interesting, because it's I think I go back to ingestibles in the US, and I think because having seen, having been, my background is really beauty, so I haven't come from food and beverage or nutrition, to be honest. So I come from a perspective of seeing supplements kind of bleed into phase, or kind of come into the beauty space. And so for a while, I think there was resistance because of efficacy, or just because of understanding kind of how it worked. And investors would have said the same thing of, in beauty, it took a while for penetration because it just took so long to see results at the end of the day, and there wasn't enough clinicals to back it up. So beauty was one of the last frontiers, I think, for ingestibles. And so one of the early wins was in format, and that was gummies, because I think it was actually driven a lot by CBD and marijuana, because I think that was a format that was popular for that, and that was like, so they a lot of the manufacturers got familiar with how to play with flavor and those formats, et cetera. So they understood how to work with formulating, et cetera. So anyway, it increased adoption, and I think that was, but also, there was question marks about, potency and actually how much you were getting, and also it was like the usage of, the experience of, there's nothing worse than having a half-used thing of gummies and you took it out and it was all gelled together, and it was like, or hard, and it was like, anyway, it was just, it was a lot. So then it moved into powders, and that, powders can get a bit messy, and then in compliance gets challenging, because it's like on the go, it's like, who wants to make a powder, even at work or on the, when you travel, it's like, so anyway, so I, to me, it's like, I think what you guys have created, I think, is really interesting, because of, one, it's thought through from a dosage perspective in terms of how you've been able to kind of concentrate and think about that from a, fitting, the 500 ml in terms of like
monthly pack.
Exactly. So it's like, so that keeps it kind of, again, in a really easy to understand dosage format. The flavor piece of it, the taste as well, and then the efficacy piece of it. So it marries up all those things, I think, which is really smart as well. So I don't know if it's, I think there's always probably, there's consumers who will always have, preference and things like that. And we talked about some of maybe those opportunities to address some of those things. But I think it's, I definitely think that where you guys have driven some of your research and science in terms of some of those things, like the efficacy, the concentration, et cetera, I think is where consumers' minds are going in terms of what they're excited about. So and flavors and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's It's fair to say that there are pluses and minuses within all formats. Like, I very often hear that there's an issue with the potency of gummies, but for example, for vitamin D, which has a very low recommended daily dosage, you could easily fit into the gummy.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, collagen, where you need at least 2.5 or we like to use 5 grams to get that optimal results, you need a bigger kind of volume to fit the collagen into. So
yeah. And I think the other, I mean, and I say that, but I'm like, you could also say the same thing about potency about capsules too, because, you know, you also actually look at their data. It's like what you absorb from capsules is also probably similarly, you know? So I think also, I think the other thing to be said is now in a world that's changed of now clinically backed science, I actually was just thinking about it because I was actually went to the, you know, I had to get actually a supplement at the drugstore like a month ago, and went into CVS or Walgreens or whatever, and it was like looking at it, the supplement aisle has actually grown up a lot, you know, as it's got new brands, and even the private label is growing up a lot in terms of like, you know, capsules and pill, whatever. But now looking at all of them now being more science backed, and they've gotten, you know, more. Now gummies actually look a bit juvenile compared to even capsules, because I think now you have much more science and things like that around. So it's like even that, I think it's not even maybe even potency anymore. It's more about just seeming less serious, I guess, versus now understanding all these other options available that maybe have much more science and efficacy, et cetera, behind them too. Maybe, you know, from just a pure format perception. Yeah.
Makes sense. I'm very impressed by how much you know about supplements, to be honest, coming from the beauty industry, which also attests to that the lines between beauty and ingestibles is blurring. So I really learned a lot from you, but I'm interested to ask you, have you learned anything during those 3 days?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, to me, this is like, it's been so fascinating to like learn more about, one, like just like the science of how you guys think about, one, formulating and like approaching thinking about product. It's like it's been fascinating to hear, you know, the favorite thing I love is, you know, because I'm not a chemist, but I built my career around partnering, surrounding myself by chemists, because I just think they're magicians in terms of how they bring to life this, you know, products that drive both emotional and physical results. And so hearing you, Marco, Dolores talk about like how your creator like talk about like the ingredients you use or just like bounce ideas off has been really just so fascinating, and you know, that piece of it. I have a question for you actually. So how do you, when you see things like, you know, GLP-1 come up, or when you see things like this, like, or even ingredients you're talking about like fear or things like that, like how do you discern between like what's going to be like a 1 year thing and what you want to actually invest time behind and like truly learn and like formulate behind?
Yeah. I love this question. I'm actually we have a bit of conservative approach, because I think that you should not believe like every trend that you see, or, you know, you should not listen to everybody, because at the end of the day we are all individuals and everybody has their own opinion about things. So the true, you know, stuff is really has to be tested with time. And it's funny, like collagen in particular, I've been hearing all about how this is gonna fade away. I've been hearing this for the past 10 years.
For real?
Yes, but to my fortune, this doesn't happen because the efficacy is there. So this, I guess, coming back to your question, would be my answer. Like, the efficacy has to be there, but also the compliance, the taste, all of that. For example, with CBD, we weren't seeing, and we still don't see, a lot of clinical data to back up the hype and all of that. And yeah, I guess it comes from the like deep research, but at the end also from that gut feeling, you know. So.
And for you then, are there any beauty trends that are exciting you guys? Like, are there anything that from a beauty perspective that you think is exciting?
Well, the most obvious answer would be this ingestible holistic approach, because I think that if there wouldn't be the trend, which is, I hope, here to stay, that's not gonna just be a trend, we wouldn't be probably talking, you know. So that has been a lot of fun for us. Yeah.
That's nice. Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Great. What about what does excite you, or maybe what brands would you say are the good example, or that you like, and why?
So I think there's a few that I think are, you know, to like bring to life some of the things we've talked about today. Because I think one thing that we've talked about over the last 3 days, I think, or one has been like, you know, clinical and consumer testing and the evolution of that. And specific to supplements, you know, we've talked about, you know, because one of the things with supplements, just as with skincare, to be honest, is the consumer's need for something immediate, right? So there's some sort of immediate effect that, you know, I've heard it called like the Tylenol effect, or something that, you know, you have a headache, you take a pill, you see a result, and like that's what you expect. So when you take a supplement, you want to feel something, you want to, you know, so how do you do that when you know that maybe there's potentially, you know, ingredients that you're formulating with that you're not going to see a result for, you know, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it is. But they will come, but you need to have the consumer utilize it to wait. So I think, so taking inspiration from that, I think there's some skincare brands like that do a good job of helping to take the consumer along the journey of what to expect and when. So there's, you know, there's a skincare brand called Do Skincare, which is an indie skincare brand in Sephora that is really, I think does a really great job of kind of romanticizing, but also is really being really transparent about kind of what you'll see and when along your skincare journey, and talking you through the results, which I think is really, it helps the consumer to understand and in a really like kind of conversational way, but which I think is really, really powerful. And I think brands could get inspiration from that as they think about their clinical testing and consumer testing approach. I think one of the ones that's been highlighted from one we talked about, like food, using food as inspiration is Rhode Skincare, which, you know, is entering Sephora later this year and is, you know, maybe up for sale. But that one, you know, definitely using, you know, food cues, and wasn't always, and it kind of pivoted to do that, and I found great success in doing so. So leverage, you know, both in finishes and imagery and things like that. So utilizing those cues within food to bring to life as well. So I think those brands kind of, I think are doing some of what we've talked about is doing kind of well in my mind. Yeah.
I agree. Maybe I would also add like the first brand that you mentioned and the claims. It's really important not to overpromise today, right? Because consumers are no longer like, you cannot play around. Like they will find out and they will cancel you. So science really has to be there, and you need to be true to them and all of that.
100%.
Which I really is a like I love to see this in this world, like.
Absolutely, and a deep understanding of it. And I think that's like the an appreciation of that, I think, is also interesting. And so that's why like it's like we've talked about storytelling a lot, and I think that's like, you know, that's what I like. That's why I love beauty so much, and stuff like all this stuff is so much, because it's like there's so much cool stuff, like, and even hearing over like we've mentioned over the last, you know, couple of days of like tidbits of like how you like things that you guys are doing or approaches you take or things like that are like, so I'm like, oh my gosh, that alone on a product page could be so interesting to a consumer to understand about your product, or things like that, I think, are from a storytelling perspective are so interesting. So I think that those are but those credible scientific insights are so, I think, can be so powerful for consumers to understand about like how you're you know, so the way that you, like for TOSLA, for example, I think the way that you work with brands and having access to like your brain to partner with a brand to be able to talk them through the formula, how you approach, how they could talk about the science, et cetera. I think could be such a value add for somebody launching, to be able to talk differently about the product or bring it to life in a credible way to make sure that it's resonating, because it's so interesting. Yeah.
Cool. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that this conversation came to an end. I really had fun during those 3 days, and I look forward to what will materialize in terms of, you know, the innovation roadmap that we did and how it will materialize. So let's keep in touch. And thank you for listeners and viewers as well, and see you on the next episode.